Hi again, everybody. Welcome into the It's Official podcast. He's Jeff Siegel. I'm Jeremy Plonk, representing First Bet and Express Bet. Great to be with you. It's Little Brown Jug Week for the harness fans, and of course, Pennsylvania Derby Saturday at Parks. Big day for people like me in the Commonwealth of PA. We got the Presque Isle Masters on Friday as well. If you want to hit both, Jeff, you just drive about 6 hours from one tip of the state to the other from Friday to Saturday. But should be a fun week of racing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'd love to be at Parks this weekend. Can you believe that card they've got? It's not just the number of stakes races they're offering and the purse money they're offering, but the quality of the horses that are going to be performing on that day at that track is almost unheard of. I don't know how many Breeders' Cup winners will come out of the Parks series of stakes races. I think maybe there's a possibility that maybe two, maybe one for sure. Who knows about the third one, but some great racing, very competitive. The field sizes are unbelievable. How did they manage to get all those horses to line up and run against next? I hope they all show up. Many running for second money in that mile and a half marathon. But anyway, good racing. We'll try to find some races that we can make money with as we watch the good sport and one of the final weekends of important prep races for the Breeders' Cup.
Of course, this is our opinion show each week. It's official. I'd be remiss if I didn't say, lower the damn takeout, Pennsylvania. I mean, come on. We get beat up here with the high rake on racing in Pennsylvania. So that opinion has to be said before anybody talks about the glorious racing action that will go on at Parks. But a murderous takeout rate here in the state of Pennsylvania. Let's go to the big board. Our first of 5 topics on the board this week on It's Official. Beware of the Buckeye. We're talking about the Commonwealth of PA, but the neighboring state of Ohio's got a little newsmaker going in horse racing right now. The Ohio-bred 2-year-old Jonathan's Way. Could he be the best 2-year-old in the country? Let's go back and take a look at his win last week in the Iroquois at Churchill Downs, and we'll get Jeff's take on him.
They come off the turn. Jonathan's Way heads for home in front by a length and a half and dashes away by 2. Jonathan's Way in front with a furlong to go. Giacoso put in a bid down the center. Owen Almighty runs up into second. 16th to catch Jonathan's Way. Clear by 3. Owen Almighty chasing Jonathan's Way, who's a big winner by 4 in the end.
Jeffy had trouble getting out of the gate at Saratoga and still won. No troubles here, coast to coast.
Well, he was very impressive. And you mentioned the fact that he was able to get out of the gate this time, which he did not do. And it's a kind of situation where 2-year-olds can look good winning if they get everything their own way. I want to see a horse that can overcome adversity. And I also want to see versatility. This horse got left at the gate in his debut at Saratoga, came wide and still won going away. This time he's on the front end, did everything right, switched off midway, kicked clear, and did so with a very strong 89 Beyer speed figure. And that's part of the equation, whether or not you really want to give full credit to a horse that wins with a perfect trip is one thing, but this horse has done it both ways. And being from the first crop of the very talented, very impressive racehorse Vekoma with a solid bottom line, I mean, this is a colt that he bought $290,000 as a weanling. I can't imagine what was going on there, other than he must have been the greatest weanling looker of all time. Because Vekoma hadn't had a runner since then. But you pointed out, or you may mention the possibility of him being the best 2-year-old in the country. I think based on resume and numbers and everything else that goes into the pot, you could certainly make a strong case for that. Now, he's not going to run again, Jeremy, until the Breeders' Cup. This is what we're going to have to deal with and evaluate. But so far, what I've seen, I'm not sure there's one out there I'd pick against him.
Oddschecker.com gives the international futures for the Breeders' Cup. Breeders' Cup Juvenile, Jonathan's Way is the favorite in the international markets at 5-2. Bob Baffert's Del Mar Futurity winner Gaming, second choice at 3-1. But you know, Jeff, when we think like big picture, not just Breeders' Cup, when you talk Jonathan's Way and Iroquois winner, we're thinking first Saturday in May at Churchill Downs, right? And in the back of Phil Bauer's mind, I'm sure he's just saying, don't let the phone ring overnight tonight. I mean, you have a good horse and you just want everything to keep moving forward. But you have to think Kentucky Derby with the big 2-year-old. This was the first race on on the points trail to the Kentucky Derby, just 10 points involved here. But we haven't seen a lot of success out of the Iroquois over the years. Since 1980, 30 horses out of the Iroquois have gone on to run in the Kentucky Derby. No winners. Looking at Lee, ran second in the Derby back in 2016. And then you got to go back to 1984 at the threshold, running third. So only 2 horses out of the Iroquois even finished in the money, one of them since 1984. So is it just an early winner and not a horse that we're looking at towards Derby time? I guess we'll find out. But his sire Vacoma's doing nothing wrong right now, right? He's had 9 winners from his first 36 starts. Jonathan's Way became the 3rd stakes winner by Vacoma in this 2-year-old crop. He had a stakes winner at Evangeline. He also had a stakes winner at Delaware Park. And now, of course, this winner at Churchill Downs. Could you see him as a Derby prospect? Let's look way down.
Well, yeah, I think I could, although Vacoma was best up to a mile and he's out of a mare by Indian Charlie. He's not the greatest mover in the world, but he's not like his sire. But I mean, because he's by his sire, that's the first thing you look at and see if he wings and runs on every which direction. The question, though, is anybody who can give $290,000 for a foal by Vacoma, he's probably not interested in money. I mean, he's probably interested in the sport more than anything else. So it'll be interesting to see if some of the big shots, buy into this horse. I don't think the owner would want to get, lose control. This is as good a 2-year-old as there is. And you mentioned the statistics about, winning the Derby after winning the Iroquois. But if he wins the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, his odds improve rather substantially, and I think that's what they're thinking here. But right now, it's kind of open. But right now, I'm tempted to put him on top, as I mentioned before, and because he's not going to run anymore, we'll just have to watch his works, and hopefully he does in the morning what he's done in the afternoon so far.
No doubt these Vacomas have been Mr. Right Nows and Ms. Right Nows. We'll see about tomorrow with this just precocious 2-year-old crop by Vacoma. So that's our first topic. We'll beware the Buckeye. We'll see how the Ohio-bred Jonathan's Way turns out heading towards the Breeders' Cup for trainer Phil Bauer, former assistant to Kenny McPeak. Our second topic on the big board this week, well, we've been talking a lot about Cogburn, how great he's been in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint Division, winning easily all 3 of his starts so far this year in the United States. There's one overseas, though, we might want to tell Cogburn about. I think there's a horse he may have to contend with when we get to the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. His name is Bradel.
Past the halfway stage, less than 2 to run, and it's Bradel coming to the front on the stand side. From She's Quality, gone on from Washington Heights. In the middle of the track is Desperate Hero, and they're followed by Makarova. It's Bradel and Holly Doyle in the lead, and now moving away, racing up towards the finish. It is Bradel, the leader, flashing home Believing, but Bradel stays unbeaten in 24th, and the Flying 5 from Believing, again confirming the York place. He's followed.
They haven't beaten him this year. This is a major graded stakes winner, group stakes winner at ages 2, 3, and now 4. What do you make of him after the win in the Flying 5 at the Curragh, Jeff?
124 Racing Post number 2 races back, 125 Racing Post number out of this race. So what does that mean? I mean, you want to quantify these performances to see how they match up with a horse as great as Cogburn. Well, those numbers are about as fast as they come for sprinters, and he is largely or overwhelmingly considered to be the best sprinter in all of Europe. He's fast. He's obviously high quality. He's been a high quality colt ever since he was a 2-year-old. It's not like he's a Johnny come lately, but I don't think he's ever been better than he is now. He's won his last 3. Most recently, he won a Group 1 in France, and then he wins this. And I never even considered the possibility that there would be anybody out there that could warm up Cogburn based on what we saw, right?
Right.
But at least this colt's going to bring with him a pressing style that should be able to keep him within range. No one would be considered to be as quick as Cogburn leaving the gate. He's going to be in front, especially going Del Mar at 5/8 of a mile, where you get to that far turn real quick. But this colt's got enough, he's got enough gas to be within range, and he's relentless from the quarter pole home. This is going to be a race. You have to go with the home court advantage, or at least he's not really a home court advantage, but the North American horse, based on his ability to win American stout running. But I don't know if we've seen a quality sprinter like Bradel come out here in years. And, the Breeders' Cup Sprint has been won by Euros in the past. It's not like it can't be done.
Right.
But this quote might be better than most of the ones we've ever seen. And I'm really interested to see. Now, he may run one more time before the Breeders' Cup and the Prix de l'Abbé on Arc Day, but only if it's firm ground. He's a top of the ground type of horse. And if the weather is good, he'll run there. But that will not preclude him from also running here. So I think whatever the case is, we'll get a chance maybe to see him one more time and then maybe evaluate him a little bit better than we are able to do right now.
It will be top of the ground running at Del Mar. You can be sure of that. Archie Watson is the trainer. Of course, Archie Watson brought a couple horses over here for the Breeders' Cup over the years. In 2018, 19, and 20, he took 3 shots in a row in the juvenile turf sprint. He's been here with turf sprinters before. Not so lucky for Archie here in the U.S., though. 6th with the favorites, Soldier's Call, back in 2018. Then 12th and 11th, and we haven't seen him since 2020. If he comes back, he's going to come with a stronger hand to play, perhaps, than what he's brought over here in previous races in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint scene. This is the older turf sprinter, Bradel. Of course, you've got Big Ev's, a horse who's being offered at 10-1 at oddschecker.com amongst the international books right now. 7-2 on Bradel, 9-4, still favoritism towards Cogburn, according to oddschecker.com. So Cogburn at 9-4, a little over 2-1, 7-2 on Bradel. We've got ourselves a horse race, at least in the international book markets, and I think we do in terms of the matchup as well. Let's go to our third topic this week as we start to talk more and more Breeders' Cup each and every week here on It's Official as we get closer to the World Championships coming up the first weekend in November. Our Breeders' Cup trackers got 3 divisions in the focus this week. We'll get a couple looks at Juvenile Fillies turf performances. We'll look at the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf and also the Mile Division. The Breeders' Cup tracker is going to start off with the Group 1 Moiglair at the Curragh, where it was Lake Victoria with a determined victory.
Right in behind them is Red Letter. Lake Victoria brought to the outside. Racing to the final furlong, it's Bedtime Story flat out from exactly on the outside. In between fillies is Simmering. Red Letter runs on against the rail. On the outside is Lake Victoria. Any one of the 5 in the Moiglair. And down the outside it is Lake Victoria who's claimed them all from Simmering. Exactly on the far side was Red Letter. Last was Bedtime Story as Lake Victoria stretched.
She got there, Jeff, but her connections think maybe she'll sprint. Will we see her in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf Sprint, in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf, or no Breeders' Cup at all for this one?
Well, she's the daughter of Frankel, so maybe I'll tell Aiden that she's actually bred to run long. So I don't know. But he says she's very fast. I mean, she's good. She's good. I don't know whether she certainly belongs in a Breeders' Cup race, undefeated as she is. Multiple graded group stakes winner, Group 1 winner now. I would think that there would be a place for her somewhere, whether it's sprinting or going a mile. That race was 7/8. I don't know. I think she'd do just fine here going to Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. We haven't seen anything great. The filly out here in California is okay, but other than that, I haven't seen anything that I would be afraid of. But obviously a good filly, and hopefully get a chance to see her. I know I'd back her with a good degree of confidence if she came.
You mentioned the filly out west, Thought Process, the good one for Phil D'Amato. She's being offered right around 10-1 right now, which I think is pretty good value in the international markets. I'd be excited about that. I know one of our followers on X asked us, to talk about some horses we might be interested in gambling on right now as we talk about the Breeders' Cup. 10-1 future bet on Thought Process in the Juvenile Fillies Turf. I feel pretty good about that. The filly we just saw may or may not come, according to Aiden O'Brien in Lake Victoria. So if she's not there, 10-1 right now on Thought Process, I'd lock in on that price on the Phil D'Amato trainee. Jeff, there's more to talk about in this Juvenile Fillies Turf division because they also ran the Natalma Stakes on Saturday's Woodbine Mile card at Woodbine, north of the border in Canada. Mark Cassie had a lot of horses. He didn't show up. We'll talk about that in a second. He was doing business at Keeneland at the sales, but his assistant was awfully busy heading to the winner's circle. especially after this one, the Natama.
At the top of the stretch and out in front is Nitrogen, tackled by and one more time Vixen. Anna's Call the inside, finishing on, and down the centre Italian Soiree. Out in front still Nitrogen, coming fast Vixen on the outside, in the centre and one more time the Mark Cassie trio, and then Anna's Call and Italian Soiree. Vixen on the outside, Vixen goes to the front with and one more time in the centre, and one more time gets it, wins the Natalma by a long neck.
And one more time, not expected to be the Cassie everybody was following, 16-1 in there. Catherine Sullivan got more words in the winner's circle than she probably ever thought she would in a day, as Cassie's assistant on hand, taking care of a massive string. I want to say Cassie had 38 horses entered across North America on Saturday. I don't know if all 38 ran with scratches and all, but just a tremendous amount of volume that he did. This one of the more surprising winners, at least based on the tote.
Well, she'd won her first start at Saratoga and did it nicely. Hard to say who she beat that day. She probably had a better chance going in than 16-1. I would have made her 10-1 anyway. Mm-hmm. But I loved the grit that she showed here, didn't you, Jeremy? I mean, she was challenged from both sides, and she refused to get beat. She ran a mile in 33-4, which is fast. Now the buyer number was solid, good enough, I thought, 79. I mean, I don't know whether she can go out and beat the best of the Euros, but she's relentless. And by Omaha Beach from a mare by Blame, she should develop and go a little farther if she has to. She won't have to on Breeders' Cup Day. Good tactical speed. It was right there in the fray every step of the way, found something extra. I'm not sure you could ask for a whole lot more other than maybe a romp by 5 and 32 and change, which you would never expect a 2-year-old filly to do this time of the year at Woodbine. I like her. I do. I think she's okay.
As far as trip handicapping goes, I mean, you've seen millions of races over the course of your career. The horse between in a three-way duel rarely wins, right? I mean, that takes some guts and that takes some fortitude by the winner in there. And one more time, to win between horses, it's usually the horse inside who can cut the corner, or the horse on the outside who doesn't kind of have that pressure to deal with. That's pretty nice for a second-time starting 2-year-old to be able to win between horses like that. So that showed the education. We talk about that a lot with these young horses, right? What did they get out of a race? Did they get anything out of it? What kind of education did they get? She got a lot of it in this race in the Natalma Stakes. And one more time for trainer Mark Cassie. We're going to talk Cassie more.
One other quick thing, Jeremy. If his small handicapping factor is something that I look at, but in this race, she won the race. The horses that were 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th in the race, and 7th and 8th, their last race, they finished 1st, 2nd, 2nd, 1st, 1st, 2nd, and 2nd. Mm-hmm. I mean, you were beating sharp, improving, quality fillies all from top to bottom. It wasn't like she had to beat just one horse. This is a good race for this level for 2-year-old fillies. So anyway, I'll really be watching her breeze in the interim to see if I like what I see.
And one more time, currently at 14-1, fourth choice for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf, according to oddschecker.com. So they just started this week putting numbers up for the 2-year-old races. We saw 9 divisions last week we talked about, but now they've got the 5 2-year-old divisions up right now with some prices as well. I think I don't think the Juvenile Turf Sprint is up yet, but the long races for the 2-year-olds and both dirt and turf are available now at oddschecker.com. You can check those out. Good editorial point if you're looking, projection. Of course, if you're international and watching our podcast, you can get down on some of that action as well. But yeah, fourth choice, 14-1 on, and one more time winner of the Natalma. Let's go to the Summer Stakes. That's the Colts and Geldings version of what we saw in Natalma. 2-year-olds going the 1-turn mile at Woodbine on the undercard Saturday for Woodbine Mile Day. Let's go back and look at the Summer Stakes, where we had a winner here from overseas.
As they sprint, New Century is second last, and last is Special Session. As they turn in the bid, 365 Summer Stakes, and now they come after Groot. Up the inside, Dream On sneaks to the front. Winterberry launching down the center, then Cairo Caper, and right down the outside, here comes William Buick on Al Qudra and Oisin Murphy on New Century, and they're eating up the ground. Dream On in front, being chased by Al Qudra and New Century, and drifting a little bit here is the leader. It's still Dream On coming to the leaders on the outside. New Century, Al Qudra in the center, and Oisin Murphy will take honours with New Century by a length and a quarter. Al Qudra in the third spot. Dream On wobbled about in the stretch.
New Century, the British bred, getting the victory there. Another one there where you saw the horse in the middle got the worst of it, right? I mean, to the inside of the outside, banging around the horse in the middle, it's the toughest spot to be. The outside's where you want to be, and just kind of went on by. A nice win there by the victor, New Century.
You mentioned a couple of minutes ago about if I were to make a bet now, and I'm curious to see what this colt is on the odds checker. I was blown away with this win. First of all, we didn't show the start, but he didn't break at all. He hit the side of the gate, got shuffled. He was dead last, which is interesting because in his previous race in the stakes over in Europe, he was on the lead the whole way. Now, a caveat to that was there was only 2 in the race, but he looked very comfortably on the lead in his prior stakes win. And this one, he had to come from stone last in the 10-horse field and go wide at that, and run a mile in 32-4 and earn a buyer number somewhere around in the 90s. So this was an amazing performance. And I don't know, I'm sure we don't have anything in the States that can touch him based on this race. In fact, the horse that he beat was another Euro. So that goes to show you. But there may be a better one that, who knows what they'll what Aidan O'Brien may bring over or a few others. But right now, if I had to bet right now, not knowing who the others Euros might be, this is the one for me. New Century. Yep. This was amazing. Fast, bad trip, relentless, versatile, on the lead from last place. You can win any way you want. Handles firm ground. Numbers are fast. Quality colt. He's got a couple, 4 races, I think. He's got foundation. He's gotten better with every race. For me, New Century is a monster.
6-1, second choice in the anti-post wagering right now at oddschecker.com for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. So you're playing there.
It
was a European horse. I don't have it written down right in front of me.
Okay, but a younger European.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
Well, that makes sense. Okay, well, we'll see if he shows up. But if he doesn't, this is my play. And maybe even if he does, because I've seen this colt and monster.
After a trio of 2-year-old races on our Breeders' Cup tracker, let's go to the main event on Saturday at Woodbine. It was the $1 million Woodbine Mile. It didn't have the superstar field that we've seen in this race in some past years, but it did have a heavy favorite, Charlie Appleby. William Buick going for 3 wins in a row in the Woodbine Mile. Would they get there with the chalk? Let's go back to the call and hear how it turned out on Saturday with Robert Geller.
Waiting in the wings, though, is Naval Power and William Buick as they corner. And first for the judges, Fila de Ariana. Naval Power presented with a real run up the inside and win for the money. They're coming, and down the outside, Niagara Skyline. Big Rock is starting to finish well from absolute last, right down the outside. Fila de Ariana in front, on the inside, win for the money. Kicking on is Naval Power, and here comes Big Rock right down the outside. Win for the money's gone to the front. Down the outside, Big Rock, and win for the money. Goes on to win the Rogers Woodbine Mile by 2 lengths.
So it's no three-peat for Appleby, but it was another big performance for a Mark Cassie trainee that we didn't expect. Win for the money sent assistant trainer Catherine Sullivan back to the winner's circle for more interviews and talk. A huge day for Cassie. Again, he wasn't there. He was at the Keeneland sales, and I'll just get on my soapbox here for a little bit. I get the sales. I understand the importance of the sales, and that's the future and everything. But you got 38 horses running on Saturday at Woodbine. I mean, I don't know. I mean, you're spending people's money for tomorrow instead of making it today. I would have been at Woodbine and send somebody else to go check out some horse flesh for the day and hustle back and forth. But Cassie, a busy man with a lot of horses and no slouching performance whatsoever. Busy on all fronts by his staff and everybody who got those horses ready to go on Saturday. Woodbine Mile winner in here, Jeff. Not what we expected, though, with win for the money.
We like this horse. You remember, Jeremy, back in the spring, we thought he might be a pretty good horse. And then he was maybe outclassed in a couple of races. He did finish second in his most recent start. And that's why he was 13-1. I don't think he would have been 13-1 if this race had been run in June. But it's, he had a couple of races where he got exposed a little bit. But he sure ran well here, got through inside and won going away. And triple-digit buyer number makes him a legitimate entrant, if nothing else, for the Breeders' Cup Mile. I don't
Right.
think he'll be anything close to being a favorite based on this race.
Mm-hmm.
But he ran nicely. Unfortunately, the Breeders' Cup Mile is going to be infinitely tougher. But it's not.
Yeah.
Let's wait. If you win $1 million race, you're not going to throw it back in the ocean, right? You'll take it.
Right. No,
So,
absolutely.
and it was well spotted. It didn't come up as tough as I thought it would be. And he won nicely. He's a gelding, so keep him going for as long as he can, and try to keep him in form for as long as you can. Pick your spots, and he'll make a lot of money for you. And that's what Mark Cassie's done with him. Good management, good training, obviously, and a really good performance by Win for the Money.
Naval Power, no real excuse. As Robert Geller was saying, he had to run up the inside if he was there. Look, going into the race, we knew this horse wasn't Modern Games or Master of the Seas, the two horses who had won this race the past 2 years for these same Godolphin connections. He was a cut below that, but the rest of this field was a cut below a lot of the Woodbine Miles historically. So he still had a big-time chance, and the favorites rolled to play in this race. But he doesn't look like a Breeders' Cup Mile horse either. Just to underscore what you're saying about this performance and how this won't stack up with the world's best milers likely. He is tied for the 35th lowest price for the Breeders' Cup Mile after winning this race. Win for the Money is 33-1. There are 34 horses less priced right now towards the Breeders' Cup Mile. A lot of options will come and go out of that list. Obviously, not that many are going to come and pre-enter, but it just goes to show there's not a lot of respect for this win in the world market.
No, not really. I mean, from what I have seen from North American-based runners or horses that have raced here, I mean, Johannes to me is head and shoulders above everybody that I've seen.
Right.
But he still has a number of euros he's going to have to worry about if he's going to win it. But now I've been waiting for something. Usually we have one or two in the States that you can make cases for, but I'm not seeing it right now.
One of those milers that you may have to contend with is the 3-year-old filly Porta Fortuna. She won the Matron Stakes overseas. That was an automatic qualifier for the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, but they don't want to go the mile and 3/8. They said our next stop will be the Breeders' Cup Mile, taking on the boys. And we've seen European 3-year-old fillies have a wonderful history in the Breeders' Cup Mile over the years. So Porta Fortuna won the watch in the Breeders' Cup Mile division. One other note before we exit our Breeders' Cup tracker this week, last year's Breeders' Cup Turf winner, Auguste Rodin, was defeated in the Irish Champions, a race he had won last year. He got beat. He's 1 for 5 on the campaign this year, and they're talking maybe Japan Cup in late November. Auguste Rodin, not even a shoe-in to come here for the Breeders' Cup now, Jeff.
No.
What do we
I think
make?
he'll probably go to Japan. I really will.
Yeah.
I think they've done that once already, and they got a colt now for the dirt. They don't need to try him there. So Japan Cup would look better on the resume than, or at least as good on the resume as a winner of the Breeders' Cup Turf twice, So I will see. I mean, I don't think he's quite as good as he was last year. The colt that beat him, he's headed to the Arc. We'll see if we get any Arc entrants out of the Arc here in California after that race. Traditionally, we do pick up a 1 or 2, so we'll see what happens there. But yeah, you saw the race, obviously. How did he not go by?
Yeah.
He never had been used at all, and had dead aim, and maybe he kicked as well as he could. But anyway, that was a strong addition. But I hope we get 1 or 2 out of there. The race could use it.
Yeah, you like to use the term grass grab bag. That's what the Breeders' Cup Turf division's feeling like right now. We've got to figure out who the top of that division will be. I think 6-1's the lowest offering right now on anything in the world markets towards the Breeders' Cup.
Not so fast, my friend. And I'll get to that in a minute.
Okay.
I'll get to that in a
minute.
Right.
All right. Looking forward to hearing that.
Okay.
So let's go to our next topic this week on It's Official, our Breeders' Cup tracker now in the rearview mirror for the week. We go to topic number 4 now. And we're looking ahead to Saturday at Parks. Wow, Jeff Siegel says with an exclamation point after seeing the entries for the racing at Parks this weekend. We're going to give you a little montage of what you can expect to see coming up this Saturday in Bensalem, PA. You've got some superstars ready to make another appearance.
And this is Next World. He is all alone, just strolling through. Let him hear it from the crowd, ladies and gentlemen. Next. Winning the Birdstone. Once again, he will win by more than the 12 he's accustomed to. Next, gallops. and Torpedo Anna has a 3-length lead. Candide is trying her best to close the gap, and Intricate picking it up from behind, but it's all Torpedo Anna. The leader of the division is simply spectacular, and the coaching club American Oaks shall win for fun by 4.5 lengths over Candide.
With Laurent Giroux, Dragoon Guard, the grain leads the way, has 3 lengths to hold on Stronghold, who's charging hard on the outside, but they're near home. It's Dragoon Guard. Dragoon Guard has won the Indiana Derby.
So the Indiana Derby will rematch in the Pennsylvania Derby top 2 finishers, but the undercard loaded with those 2 superstars. Next goes in the Greenwood Cup, defending his title in there. And then the $1 million cotillion for 3-year-old fillies features the certain champion 3-year-old filly, potential horse of the year still, in Torpedo Anna. Jeff, it's as strong as undercard as you're ever going to see.
I high quality racing, short prices, but I can live with them if you have horses like this. Mm-hmm. I mentioned... we've talked about the 1.5 miles, the Breeders' Cup per turf.
Right.
I mean, if Next wins this race, and he'll be 1-20, here's a horse who's won his last 5 by a total of 68.5 lengths, and most of them eased up in the final quarter of a mile.
Yeah.
7 out of his last 8 buyer numbers, triple digits. This race is in the dirt. I think if they asked me, which they won't, but if they asked me, if they wanted to go in the Breeders' Cup, I'd absolutely, based on the quality and the pace projection, I'd go on the grass, the 1.5 miles. He's as good a grass horse as he is on dirt. The way the race projects, the classic, tons of speed over a track that speed sticks like you know what. And I think if I'm advising these people, I say, if you want to run in the Breeders' Cup, do it in the 1.5 miles. It'll be a much slower pace. It'll be a galloper's race. He won't have to, because if you look at his form, he's never had to deal with a 45, 109, and that's what they're going to go at Del Mar, over a track that's very kind of speed. You don't want to have them to do this to him and lose his confidence when he can't keep up on a fast pace. But going 1.5 miles, it's a different game. Plus, as you just pointed out, there ain't no monsters in that race that we know of, do we? 1.5 miles on the grass?
Not to this point.
No, so let him go there, outclass the field. It's not like you have to worry about if he can go 1.5 miles. You know he can do that.
Yeah,
he can handle the grass. He can do that. I mean, that's what he should go. I mean, to me, to answer your question earlier that Ollie said in, if I'm making a bet right now and I know he's running in the 1.5 miles, that's my bet, along with the 2-year-old that won in Canada. Those are my 2 best.
It's going to be a big day at Parks on Saturday with Express Bet and First Bet. If you play that card from Parks, if you bet $150, you get a $25 wager credit put back into your account. So essentially a $25 rebate for betting $150, 12.5% rebate on Saturday if you play those races with First Bet and Express Bet. So be sure to check that out. Let's look at the field for the Pennsylvania Derby. We know the undercard should be just 2 layovers. I don't see Torpedo Anna getting warmed up in the cotillion. She should punch out that field at 1 1/8 miles and then go to the Breeders' Cup. Distaff is the likely favorite in there, probably, unless Adair Manor gets healthy and back on the beam in a real hurry.
She has not had to work. Adair Manor since that. So she's out behind the 8 ball right now.
Torpedo Anna in a futures bet might not be a bad play at this point if you're looking at the fact that Adair Manor may not make the race, right? Torpedo Anna might be 3-5 in the distaff if that's the case. So if you're looking at futures kind of bets, whether it's in Vegas, or overseas, not a bad look there. As for the Pennsylvania Derby, a field of 11 has entered this one, including the Preakness winner, Seize the Gray. He's looking to get back on the beam. Of course, earlier this year, he won the Preakness at Pimlico. Prior to that, on Kentucky Derby Day, was the winner of the Pat Day Mile. We saw earlier the highlights of Dragoon Guard and Stronghold running 1-2 in the Indiana Derby. Since then, Dragoon Guard went on to win the West Virginia Derby as well for Brad Cox and Florent Giroux. They teamed up last year to win the Pennsylvania Derby with Saudi Crown. They'll look to make it 2 in a row. Jeff, you've known Stronghold for a long time. You saw him out there all winter. He won the Santa Anita Derby. What do you make of the Pennsylvania Derby field?
Well, I think Stronghold's maybe good enough to hit the board, but I'm not sure he's good enough to win a race like this. Dragoon Guard just beat him on the square. Now, Dragoon Guard, colt by Arrogate, he's supposed to get better with age, and it looks like he has. All 3 of his recent wins, though, have been gate to wire. And that, again, may flatter his form. Now, unless he can make the lead here again and dominate. And, there's a possibility that he could. There's others in here that could be sent and try to make the running. We'll see what happens there. I'm curious to see, though. I think Dragoon Guard has maybe some upside that the others don't have, like, for example, Stronghold. I think maybe we've seen what he can do, and that's it. Whereas Dragoon Guard looks to me like a colt who may have more to give, especially based on his pedigree. So I'm interested in him. I'm unless you're going to tell me it's going to rain, and you're back in the net and end of the woods there. I don't think Seize the Gray does anything for me, honestly.
He'll need a wet track probably.
Right. Yeah, I don't. I mean, he's whatever price he is. I mean, he'd be a bet against for me. And if he goes out and wins it, tip my hat to Wayne Lucas. I know you at one time liked Protective and Timeout was as a Curlin. I was always looking for him to step forward. He's hasn't done that. He's kind of like the same horse. So Unmatched Wisdom got exposed in the Travers. His race before that in the Curlin was good, but again, slow pace on the lead. Those races can make you look better than you are. So if I had to pick one here, I'd stick with the sharp horse, the improving horse, maybe with the colt with the most upside in Dragoon Guard. But it's a very competitive race. Do we have a Breeders' Cup competitor in here? I don't think we do. But for $1 million, they'll all be trying. We know that, and it'll be interesting to see if Dragoon Guard can take some heat this time and fight it off.
And if he wins, Jeff, please, I'm giving you the keys to the car right now. Take my keys from me. Don't let me fall into him in the Breeders' Cup Classic like I did Saudi Crown last year. It didn't work out for me at all. He looks a lot like Saudi Crown on form, and if he comes out
of this, you have the right idea, though. I'll give you that.
I'm going to get tempted to play him in the Breeders' Cup Classic, and it was just not the right move last year. So please stop me from my own devices.
Okay. I'll give you a list. I'll give you a list of horses that you'll need to stop me from. Then how about that? Okay, I guarantee you there'll be more than one.
Yeah, we got to look out for each other in this game. Another mention in the Breeders' Cup Classic division, nominations are out for the California Crown, which the $1 million race will inaugurate next Saturday at Santa Anita. Big weekend at Santa Anita, now about 10 days or so away from opening day of the Santa Anita Fall Meet. Looking forward to the California Crown. Nominations are out for all the three big stakes races, the Eddie D, the John Henry, and then the California Crown. Of course, that was the former Awesome Again Stakes, so it maintains its Grade 1 status. Both Muth and National Treasure are considered probables for Bob Baffert. They're going to run against each other from what words are coming out of California at this point. The 3-year-old Muth, of course, was supposed to run this summer at Del Mar, got back to the races, not in the Pacific Classic, but in the Shared Belief Stakes, and ran well. And National Treasure, of course, the defending champion in the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Who knows which direction they go coming out of this race, but we might see Muth and National Treasure a week or so from now. Skippy Longstocking, a horse that was interesting, listed on the nominations, whether or not Safi will send him west off the win in the Charlestown Classic. That's another name just to throw out there for the California Crown. Entries will be drawn for the California Crown the beginning of next week, so we'll know the fields and get set for that big one about 10 days from now. Jeff, you'll be doing the morning line for Santa Anita this fall for the first time as well, right?
And you'll be helping me out considerably, right? We'll have the two geniuses together here trying to figure out. I don't care if I just don't want to blow a line. So you're gonna help me avoid that, okay? And
all right. Well,
I was trying to, as of right now, do you think Fierceness is the logical favorite? I mean, do you think he'll be the favorite in the class?
Yeah, unless we see something incredible in the Japan Cup Dirt. If we see a huge performance from Forever Young, say he runs off the screen in there, I could see a lot of interest in him. Coming over here. But again, he'd have to win, open 6, 8, 10 lengths and just look like a world beater. And then everybody's memory is jogged from almost winning the Kentucky Derby. And I could see him being a horse that gets a lot of steam. But yeah, right now I would say it would have to be Fierceness among what we know for sure on paper as of right now, as far as the favorite goes for the Breeders' Cup Classic. Another topic here as we wrap up the fifth of 5 topics each and every week on It's Official. It's our Stars of Tomorrow segment. We talked about the young sire Vekoma. He's got 9 winners, 3 stakes winners, and one of his new winners from the past weekend was Vekoma Ride, a winner at Belmont at the Big A. Here's Vekoma Ride's victory, our Star of Tomorrow.
go. Math Tutor is still there. McHale in between horses, and out wider there's Vekoma Rides, and Vekoma Rides straightens up and sprints away. Vekoma Rides is now opening up, is up by 2-3 widening lengths here for a final furlong. Moment's Notice is getting that rally going, has run up into second, but has a lot of ground to make up on Vekoma Rides. As Vekoma Rides, Alias is also making up some late ground, but Vekoma Rides, that's your debut winner. Vekoma Rides wins it over Alias, who does get second over Moment's Notice.
So, Jeff, what do you like about this one for trainer John Kimmel?
Well, I mean, he's by Vekoma. I like that. One first time out. Doesn't have a great pedigree, and he's just an okay mover. But, I mean, he won that race by, 5? He could have won by many. I mean, have you ever seen I was actually waiting for the stewards to throw a flag for taunting at the final 16th of a mile. I mean, that was embarrassing, standing up at the 16th pole and winning under wraps. But at the time, it was very deep track, but he won nicely. I think he's a router. I watched this Breeze in the Sale. He wasn't a quick action horse. I think he'll run long. And if he stays in that area throughout the winter, I think he's going to clean up. I like him. So Vekoma Rides, John Kimmel. I'm sorry, and
Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel is not trading any horses.
I don't think so. But John Kimmel used to train for me, so I shouldn't have blown his name. Of course, it was like 35 years ago, but good guy. Anyway, good luck to him and Vekoma Rides as he goes up the ladder, and we'll find out how good he is down the road.
Let's review our topics this week on It's Official. We started off saying beware of the Buckeye. The Ohio bred Jonathan's Way improved to 2 for 2 with an easy victory in the Iroquois at Churchill Downs. He's now the favorite for the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. You may want to tell Cogburn about him. His name is Bradel for trainer Archie Watson, a big-time winner in the Flying 5 Stakes Group 1 in Europe over the weekend, and he's headed here next, perhaps a race in between, but he's headed here for the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, and that will give us an international showdown between Bradel and Cogburn potentially in the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint. Our Breeders' Cup tracker took a look at Lake Victoria, winning the Moy Glare in the Irish big weekend there, Irish Champions Weekend. We also saw at Woodbine a trio of stakes on our program in recap. The Natalma victory by And One More Time for trainer Mark Cassie. The Summer Stakes, where we had the European Invader New Century put up a big number and become a horse Jeff's really looking forward to in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies Turf or Juvenile Turf Division. And we also looked at the Woodbine Mile, where Win for the Money pulled the 13-1 upset for trainer Mark Cassie in absentee, now 33-1 for the Breeders' Cup Mile, though. Our Parks preview talked about how we've got next, and Jeff's hoping next comes from the Goodwood Cup Saturday at Parks and shows up perhaps in the Breeders' Cup Turf, going 1.5 miles on the grass. We also have the superstar on the undercard, Torpedo Anna, for the Cotillion Stakes on Saturday, and we previewed quickly the Pennsylvania Derby, which we'll handicap in much more detail coming up on our Friday podcast, First Call. And our start of tomorrow this week was Vekoma Rides, the second offspring of Vekoma to show up in the 2-year-old ranks this week. Vekoma Rides, trained by John Kimmel, our star of tomorrow. Sometimes we get a bonus topic here on It's Official. I'm going to take a little personal umbrage on this one as Jeff takes his phone call here. On Monday, I'll be celebrating with my wife, Andrea, our 24th wedding anniversary. So by the time we reconvene next week, we'll already have our anniversary. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention a filly named Andrea. She won for the second straight time this weekend. She's trained by Sappy Joseph Jr. She won the Hallandale Beach Stakes. Maybe she's headed to the Breeders' Cup. But either way, I got a smile watching her come down the strip.
A 1/4 mile to come, but they'll have to do some big-time running to get near Andrea, who's now isolated herself on the top end with a 7-length lead. At the rail, What Literal tries to outfinish Kip the distance. Down the center in a late run from Brenna, but this is all about Andrea. Andrea, an impressive winner on debut, and she's an impressive winner of the Hallandale Beach, going 2 for 2 in her young career. The daughter of 1,000 Words was never threatened in 6 in front.
I didn't know Pete Aiello knew our marriage secret. It's all about Andrea. That's what I've been saying for 24 years. If you just do that, you can survive this amount of time. But great race call there from Pete. Maybe we'll see her in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies, Jeff. But I did call my wife into the office and said, you got to check out this replay. She smiled and said she looked good. So we'll take that victory for sure. Andrea, one to watch. Maybe she's a star tomorrow as well.
I think she's a star of today.
2 for 2 in a stakes win.
Yeah.
That's going to wrap things up this week. We will be back on Friday. Can't wait to reconvene for some handicapping with our First Call podcast coming up this Friday. We're going to look at some major races for the weekend. Of course, before the weekend hits, Friday is Presque Isle Masters Day and the Presque Isle Mile. So a big day in Erie, Pennsylvania on Friday. And then, of course, Saturday, the Pennsylvania Derby Day card at Parks. Jeff and I will handicap some great stakes from around the country. Churchill's got a handful of stakes races coming up this Saturday as well. A big weekend at Laurel. So a lot going on around the racing industry, and we'll be back on Friday for the handicapping. On behalf of everybody with First and my partner Jeff Siegel, I'm Jeremy Plonk. Have a great couple days. We'll see you Friday.